Hello and welcome. In this video, we will continue to discuss the possibility that Earth could be accelerating upwards by looking at the bowling ball and the feather dropped in a vacuum chamber experiment. When a bowling ball and a feather are suspended in a vacuum chamber and then released, they both appear to accelerate towards the ground at the exact same rate. This experiment is puzzling because the bowling ball has a far greater mass and density than the feather does. So the amount of force required to accelerate these two contrasting items should vary considerably. They should not fall at the same rate, and yet that is what we see happening. This demonstration uses a bowling ball and a feather, but we could actually take it a step further. If we wanted to, we could line up any number of different items of all different sizes and densities. You could perhaps have a cube of polystyrene, a bulldozer, and you could even have a helium balloon. The helium balloon will expand when the air is removed from the vacuum chamber. But if the balloon is strong enough not to pop, it would also work, and when released they would all fall together at the exact same rate in perfect synchronicity. If the ground and the suspended items are completely stationary, then it must require a force to accelerate the items towards the ground. Now ask yourself, what kind of magical force could be responsible for instantly accelerating each item separately with just enough force so that they all move at the exact same rate? Just imagine the force required to instantaneously accelerate a bulldozer at 9.8 meters per second squared compared to the polystyrene. It doesn't seem possible, and according to the laws of motion, it should not be possible. And yet, that is what we see happening. Let's take a look at how this could be explained if the Earth was accelerating upwards. We see the released items and the ground come together, so we know that something is accelerating. Either all the items are accelerating downwards simultaneously at the exact same rate, or it is simply the ground that is accelerating upwards. According to Isaac Newton's laws of motion, it requires a force to accelerate an item. Then if that force is removed, the item will continue to travel at a constant velocity until an opposing force decelerates the item. If we assume that the Earth is accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared, and we perform the bowling ball and feather experiment outside the vacuum chamber, prior to release we see that the atmosphere and the tethered items are all being accelerated upwards by the force of the upwards accelerating Earth. Everything is accelerating upwards in unison. Even though the air is accelerating upwards with a reference frame, the bowling ball is very high density, so the air alone cannot support it and accelerate it upwards. So when the bowling ball is released, it would instantly stop accelerating, and in the absence of any force to slow it down, it would continue to travel upwards at a constant velocity as per Newton's laws of motion. Then the ground would continue to accelerate up to meet it. The feather, however, is far less dense and has a large surface area compared to its mass, meaning that unlike the bowling ball, the air can partially support the feather. This means that when the feather is released, it will continue to be accelerated upwards to a certain degree, but at a slower rate than the air which is pushing it. To us on the ground, this gives the feather the appearance of falling to the ground slowly. In the vacuum chamber, there is no air to accelerate the feather, so the feather behaves the same as the bowling ball. The moment they are released, they instantly stop accelerating and simply continue to rise at a constant velocity, until the accelerating ground rises to meet them. Outside the vacuum chamber, solid matter falls at different rates based on its individual ability to be supported or affected by the upwards accelerating air. Inside the vacuum chamber, in the absence of any air, they all behave in the exact same way, irrespective of the object released. A stationary Earth, with a magical tractor beam pulling force, which simultaneously pulls all matter towards the ground at the same rate, regardless of size, density, or mass, has no known mechanism or explanation and violates the laws of motion. But an upwards accelerating Earth simply explains what we see in this vacuum chamber experiment, and it complies with the laws of motion. Thanks for watching.